I'm gonna try and lose him.
Nice driving.
Thanks.
So Canada is now being introduced to the truck of peace. We've had someone in Toronto run a bunch of people over on a sidewalk. And I'm sure our Prime Minister is busy thinking about that while he gets his photo ops. So I suspect heavily that this person was a Muslim. Even though they're not saying that, I think the reason to believe that he was is that they would love, our government would love nothing more and would take any opportunity as soon as possible to proclaim that he was not a Muslim, if he wasn't. But I think he was, and that's why they haven't said that. There's nothing more important to these people, in fact, than to proclaim that someone was not a Muslim after some type of violent crime. It's also a signature move at this point, though it's not always a Muslim who uses a truck. It seems to be out of their playbook. And so they've said that he's not connected to terrorists, any terrorist organization. He wasn't known to the authorities. Just a couple of things. First of all, someone does not need to be part of a terrorist organization formally in order to be radicalized. That's not how that works. In fact, some people are basically acting on their own cognizance. And any kind of connection to the fact that he is from an immigrant family from a Muslim area that's been deemed a dangerous area. So, for instance, a nation where they're not just Muslim, but they've been deemed hostile to the Western culture, and perhaps prone towards a higher level of possible violence. If he's from there, even second generation actually is more likely to be radicalized once they're living in the West than the first. Because at least their parents came here from the shithole and all the bullshit they had to deal with back home. Their kids don't have to deal with it directly. They're raised over here in a culture of freedom and liberty, and all they hear about are the stories and the teachings. And so they're more prone to take that in the context of believing in the utopian and the super promises and the spiel, the spin. Whereas the parents have lived some of the experience and are more likely to have a little hesitation to take it completely literally and go too far. The second thing is, now a lot of people won't know this that aren't Canadian. Our Prime Minister, Trudeau, he, being a complete idiot, not knowing anything about how to run a government, he put someone in charge of our military who not only had not enough experience, but was chosen specifically because he has a religion that has a turban. So I don't even really care what sect he's from. He was not a white and he was not Christian, and that was great. Had to have him in charge of the military. People from within the military at various levels criticized it. It was squashed, and he also has been accused, quite accurately, I believe, of stolen valor. No big deal. He's in charge of our military. So now we have PC culture running wild, and our police forces who are not doing their job as well because they're afraid of losing their job, being even criminally charged for doing their job if somebody that they are, taking down is not white, etc. Same thing's happening in the military. Oh, Lord, we better respect everyone's gender pronouns in the military. Forget about this whole we need to die for our country. There's a lot of shooting going on and stuff. No. Gender pronouns, let's worry about that. So this incompetent bum put in charge of our military by an incompetent bum who's in charge of our country. He's running a military where this guy was in the military. The guy who used the truck to run people over was so fucked up he murdered people, but then also tried to get the cops to shoot him so that he could be martyred or whatever his motive was. He went through our military. He was involved with them for 2 months in a training program for 16 days before he asked to leave. And he was so fucking bad at being in the military, whatever problems they're having, they said okay. They let him go early. So that must have been, pretty bad. And this is the state of where we're at. Like, I was talking to my brother. We used to know a guy, a friend of his. My brother's a bit younger, a few years younger. This guy, he didn't drool, he didn't seem violent, but he seemed a little off, just something like, I'm glad he doesn't have a gun. That's just, we didn't need to talk about it. We all knew. Just glad he doesn't have a gun. He's a little off. So this is back in the 90s, and the Jean Chrétien liberals, which seem to be on planet Earth and more centrist and capable, their military that they were running picked him out as a danger right at the get-go. He applied, they rejected him. You shouldn't have a gun. You don't qualify. You're not allowed in. This military, the guy is involved with them for 2 months, gets in for 16 days. He asked to leave because they are too stupid to ask him to leave, and they don't notice anything wrong. And then a couple months later, he's running people over and trying to commit suicide by cop. And they're like, well, we didn't know anything was wrong. Well, how the fuck did you not know something was wrong? There had better be a massive inquiry into all of this, and people's heads should roll. Obviously not literally. Maybe this is my thought. Since they took the guy alive, and some people are angry and they're like, they should execute him. Well, we don't execute people in Canada. There's no death penalty. But I thought, instead of paying all this taxpayer money to put him in prison and talk about how he's probably mentally ill after murdering 10 people and possibly more who might die in the hospital, who knows how many limbs were ripped off by this attack and how many people's heads were shattered and they'll never walk right again. I don't know. But here's a cost-effective, taxpayer-effective way. Why don't we just tie him up, throw him down in a parking lot, and then let the family members decide if they want to go for a ride in a rental van in that parking lot?